9 spine-chilling encounters with cursed feral people in Appalachia, revealed secrets of terror. Night swallowed the small Appalachian town whole, leaving only shadows to twist in the fading light. In an old house, crumbling beneath decades of neglect, Sarah sat at a rickety table, anxiety gnawing at her insides. The walls whispered and she felt their breath, a cold caress against her skin. A shiver danced up her spine. Outside, the woods thickened like a wall, dark and forbidding, hiding secrets that should stay buried. "Mom," I heard whispers again. Jake's voice sliced through the heavy silence, his eyes wide, betraying fear. It wasn't he the first time. Lily sat beside him, pale fingers tracing strange symbols she'd drawn on the floor, each one a direct challenge to Sarah's sanity. "Just the wind, sweetheart." She forced a smile, trying to keep the shadows at bay. It felt so wrong to dismiss their fears. Each night, the chirps of crickets transformed into eerie caws all wrong. The locals warned her in hushed tones, their sunken eyes glinting with fear and a certain knowing. "Stay out of the woods," they whispered. "Beware the feral people." But she brushed them off. Superstitions, she told herself, the words echoing as laughter in her mind. Weeks scuttled past, her life falling into a false normalcy, until it cracked. One fateful day, Jake rushed out for a camping trip with friends, excitement shimmering in his eyes. Hours passed. Panic twisted Sarah's heart, the silence wrapped around her like a thick fog. "Where is he?" she whispered, fear bubbling to the surface. She gathered her nerve and cut through the thick underbrush toward the woods. The trees loomed as if alive, closing around her, heavy with secrets. Each snap of a twig echoed, every rustle sent chills racing down her spine. Where was her boy? Then she stumbled across them, symbols etched into the bark, identical to those Lily had drawn. A chill laced her veins. Dread gripped her heart. The townsfolk's warning suddenly felt weighty. She spun around and raced back, heart pounding, her instincts screaming. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah sought answers from the townsfolk, but every question was met with averted eyes and tight-lipped smiles. The whispers grew louder, twisted faces around her muddying her hope. "The feral people," they murmured, speaking of blood and midnight rituals, generations of horror wrapped in the town's history. For a moment, solace seemed a dream. She heard Jake's name on the wind, mixed with laughter that chilled her bones. Her heart raced as she sensed an encroaching darkness. The tendrils of fear began to wrap tighter around her family, her home now a prison of dread. Then snow began to fall, heavy and thick, wrapping the town in a blanket of silence. But Sarah couldn't help but wonder, wandering deeper into the woods, what awaited her amidst the shadows. As whispers turned into cries, uncertainty loomed. Could she save her children before the dark claimed them, and her world was forever changed? The cold enveloped Sarah like an unwelcome cloak as she stumbled through the ice-dusted underbrush, her breath escaping in panicked puffs of mist. Each snap of twigs beneath her feet echoed like a gunshot, slicing through the oppressive silence of the woods. The trees loomed, their gnarled branches twisting like clawed fingers reaching for her, and the weight of unseen eyes pressed against her back. "Jake!" She called into the aching void, her voice shaky and desperate. The ground felt alive, rooted monsters whispering their secrets just beyond her comprehension. Every rustle of leaves sent a shiver racing up her spine, and she risked a glance over her shoulder, half expecting to see something grotesque lurking between the shadows, but there was nothing. Just the trees, standing sentinel, guarding their dark truths. As she pressed on, the snow began to pile thicker at her ankles, swallowing her footsteps and memories whole, as if the woods wanted to erase her passage. "Mom! Where are you?" Jake's voice echoed in her mind. It felt like a haunting, a ghost she couldn't reach. She blinked back tears, a wave of guilt crashing over her. What kind of mother lost her child to this cursed place? A horrific shriek erupted from deeper within the woods, shattering her frantic thoughts. It wasn't human. It curled her toes in dread, and Sarah's heart raced with each beat that echoed like a drum of impending doom. She pulled her coat tighter, scanning the darkness. Where were the townsfolk? Where were the others? Gripping her flashlight tightly, she resumed her search. The beam of light flickered against the trees, illuminating strange markings smeared across the bark symbols that sent a bolt of recognition through her. Lily. Her daughter was somehow connected to this. The town didn't just fear the feral people, they revered them, and somehow, her children were now a part of this nightmare. Then the air changed. The atmosphere thickened, becoming suffocating, heavy with an odor of decay. What had been mere soil beneath her feet now felt like a living thing, squelching with a grotesque hunger. She stumbled back, tripping on a root that twisted like a serpent around her ankle. "Help!" A voice came from somewhere familiar, but distant, echoed by the gnawing sounds of laughter. It wasn't just laughter, it was a siren call, inviting her deeper. Each echo added to the hum of madness in her mind. Sarah's heart raced with determination as dread settled in the pit of her stomach. She strained to listen. Jake! Lily! The shadows closed in, and each name seemed to incite a frenzy, whispers growing louder chanting her children's names, luring them into the depths. Stay away from the woods. The townsfolk's words echoed in her mind, but it was too late. They were already entwined within this nightmare. Suddenly, a figure darted past her, a flicker of movement that was gone in an instant. Her blood ran cold. Was it Jake? Jake! She screamed, thrusting the flashlight in the direction of the movement. But the beam caught only branches bending unnaturally, shadows stretching longer than they should have. A bone-chilling shriek erupted again, but this time, the sound was closer. A feeling of being watched washed over her, prickling her skin like icy fingers. Something was out there, something watching, waiting. The laughter echoed in her ears once more, now filled with malice as if it was aware of her despair. She turned to run, heart hammering, but she felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. And then she froze. Faces emerged from the darkness, twisted, grinning, and garbed in rags of shadowy fibers. Their eyes glimmered like embers, fixated on her, and with a rush of adrenaline, she realized. This wasn't just a rescue mission, it was a reckoning. But before she could allow herself to think, the shadows lunged. Jake! She cried out again, plunging forward into the fray of darkness. What awaited her? Would she find her children, or was she too late? Time itself felt like a monster, ready to snatch her away into the mire of night. And in that moment, the darkness thickened, promising a truth she was not yet ready to face. The shadows lunged forward, wild and frantic, engulfing Sarah, a chaotic surge of twisted limbs and shrieks that sent her gasping for air. She braced herself, flailing her arms, trying to push back against the unseen forces. Desperation clawed at her throat. She couldn't be swallowed here, not now. Suddenly, a chilling laugh pierced through the cacophony, deep and hollow, echoing laughter that tugged at her sanity. It felt mockery, as if whatever haunted these woods delighted in her fear. Then, from the mass of darkness, a clearer voice cut through, unmistakable. "Mom! Help me!" Jake's plea, filled with terror and urgency, broke through the madness. "Jake!" Her own voice shattered the oppressive atmosphere, mingling with the shrieks. She stumbled forward, pushing aside the cloaked figures standing in her path. Their grins widened, revealing teeth stained with the colors of decay, mouths parting as if they savored her panic. "Get away from him!" she cried, lunging forward, barely dodging grasping hands that lunged for her. Each time she brushed a figure, their skin felt clammy, electrifying her with fear and a sickly odor that made her gag. She forced the flashlight ahead, its beam quivering as if it too was caught in the throes of terror. "Mom! This way!" Jake's voice rang out again, stronger. It was coming from a clearing, a slight break in the mess of off-kilter shadows. Freedom glimmered just beyond. With no time to ponder, she sprinted toward the sound, fueled by sheer need. The laughter behind her morphed into a cacophony of growls and howls, a threat simmering just out of reach. As she burst into the clearing, her heart sank. There was her son, Jake, but he was not alone. The figures surrounded him now, twisted limbs extending toward the boy, convincing whispers spilling from their jagged mouths. "Join us," they beckoned, eyes like burning coals, as if they were trying to infect him with their dark allure. "Jake! No!" Sarah felt her resolve crumbling. She threw herself between her son and the monstrous forms, every instinct screaming to protect him. Desperation sliced through her decision-making. She grasped Jake's shoulders, pulling him back, but it felt like trying to wrestle a ghost. The children in the darkness they were circling, murmuring soft, seductive chants that clung to the air. "Look at us, Jake," one of the figures crooned, its voice silk smooth but rife with malice. "We're not lost, we've found our home." The twisted faces welcomed Jake into their fold, offering warmth where the cold clawed at Sarah's heart. "No, we can leave. We can go home." She thrust her flashlight wildly, the beam flashing across a mass of horrid expressions, eyes blinking like darkened stars. Her heart pounded a frantic waltz. This wasn't a rescue, this was something primal, insidious. "Jake!" she implored again, desperation thickening her voice like fog. "You're not like them." A manic glimmer flickered across Jake's face. "But they've shown me." The trees creaked ominously, and a gust of wind hurried through the clearing, carrying the scent of wet earth and decay. The ground quivered beneath her feet, alive with the throes of ancient wrath. Sarah thrust her hands to the sky. "You'll come back with me. I swear I won't let them take you." Just as Jake opened his mouth to respond, the lights flickered, and a deafening roar erupted from the woods. The shadows hesitated, and for a moment, uncertainty clouded the figure's eyes. Sarah seized her chance. Grabbing Jake's wrist, she pulled him away, adrenaline surging. But they were being swallowed, shadows closed in around them, eager to reclaim what they believed was theirs. "Don't look back!" Sarah yelled, yanking Jake forward. But the ground twisted beneath their treading feet, and as they fled into the darkened night, a chilling realization pierced her heart. What if Jake wanted to stay? They burst from the clearing and the cacophony of voices followed, melding into a tape of hushed whispers. The trees thrashed as if alive, sending branches arcing overhead, but terror propelled them forward. Just when hope flickered within her, a deafening silence blanketed the woods. Only the muffled crackling of the icy underbrush filled her ears. Something was coming, something darker than before, and then, from behind the cover of trees, a figure loomed. A tall shadow, waiting, watching. Would she save Jake, or would the woods consume them both? The silence throbbed, coiling tightly around her resolve. As that figure stepped forward, every instinct screamed at her to run. But deep down, a terrible truth lingered. In that haunting expanse, she still did not know which was the greater threat, the shadows or the truth waiting to be unveiled. The figure stepped closer, revealing its form under the moonlight, a tall, gaunt silhouette, its limbs elongated almost grotesquely. It was human, yet something was inherently wrong. Eyes glinted like shards of broken glass, cruel and hungry. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribcage, drowning out all reason. "Run!" she screamed, pulling Jake along a path that seemed to twist and turn unnaturally, fueled by her desperate instinct to escape. But the shadows were relentless, weaving through the trees, stretching, clawing at the air as if to pluck them from safety. Mom, wait. Jake's voice faltered, laced with fear, tugging at Sarah's heart even more than the imminent threat. We can't leave them. Jake, no. They aren't like you, they don't want you. She pleaded, her grip tightening on his arm, an anchor in a storm of darkness, but as they ran, she realized the weight of her words was slipping away, her son's resolve seeming to strengthen under the pull of the shadows, his voice drifting into an echo. I have friends there. They're just kids like me. Each pleading word wrapped around her heart like a vice. No. They're not your friends. They want to take you. Panic surged through her body. What if he chose them? What if the echoes in the darkness wrapped him in their cold embrace forever? A piercing whistle sliced through the air. The sound was both familiar and strange, echoing like a midnight call from something unseen. It seemed to beckon to Jake, held an allure she couldn't grasp. She glanced over her shoulder, the figures were closer now, moving with unnatural haste, whispering tales of comfort and belonging that twisted around her son, pulling at his resolve. Stay with me. She shouted, hoping to pierce the fog of enchantment. You have to stay with me. But her voice trembled, filled with uncertainty. What if Jake preferred the acceptance of those cursed shadows? What if he saw them as a family and her as an enemy? As they navigated through thickets, brambles scratched at Sarah's arms like fingers reaching out, urging her back into the dark. The air thickened with tension, a stifling fog that wrapped around them, making each breath heavier. It's getting worse, she muttered more to herself than him. Jake stopped, his face stricken with confusion. Mom, I don't say it. Tears blurred her vision as they stood frozen on the pathway. A shattering crack followed by a low growl echoed behind them. It was coming, the figure now just steps away, drawn toward the scent of her fear. Stay by me. Please. She cried out in desperation, clutching the flashlight like a sword against the encroaching darkness. In that moment, Jake nodded, but Sarah could see the resolve flickering within him, a wisp of light in an overwhelming dark. The whispers grew louder, urging him to turn, to listen. You can be with us, Jake. You don't have to be afraid. Run, Sarah. Jake's voice turned pleading, caught in a web of uncertainty, pulling him toward the darkness that promised acceptance. She fought it, gritting her teeth. I won't let you go. I'll fight, I swear. And then, without warning, the ground shook. Roots erupted from below, snaking around their ankles, wrestling for dominance. The shadows drew closer, and in their midst, laughter erupted, a sound both sinister and enchanting. A chorus of voices promising freedom, never-ending joy, drowned out by the chaotic terror thrumming in Sarah's chest. Jake! She yanked hard on his arm as the earth rumbled violently. A wave of white-hot fear burrowed through her veins. We have to run now. We don't have time. But Jake hesitated, caught between the siren songs of the feral figures and his mother's frantic urgency. The shadows were closing in. Choose. Sarah shouted, fear saturating her every word. Us or them. The choice hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. As Jake's eyes darted between her and the figures, the world around them turned to chaos. The wind howled, shrieking with voices of the damned, pleading, beckoning. She could feel the darkness closing in. Would either of them survive the night? With a final roar that cut through the din, the shadows lunged forward, and Sarah braced herself for the fight of their lives. But as the darkness enveloped them, a chilling whisper reached her ears, a voice she recognized all too well, a voice belonging to a woman she once knew. Sarah, come join us. It was too late. The shadows were here, and somewhere in that darkness, whispered truths waited to consume them both. What far deeper horror lurked behind? The night had only just begun. The shadows surged forward, their laughter transforming into a cacophony of screams that swallowed the night. Sarah felt the primal urge to flee, but her feet seemed glued to the earth, terror rooting her in place. With every moment, the dark figures swirled and danced, their forms twisting into grotesque shapes that taunted her very essence. "Jake!" she cried, her voice trembling as she tugged on her son's arm, desperate to wrench him from the suffocating grasp of the nightmare. But he stood frozen, his wide eyes reflecting the flickering shadows, searching for what felt like a lost home. "Mom, they want me." His voice was barely a whisper, a thread of longing woven into the fabric of the horror besetting them. The shadows lifted, coalescing around him as if trying to pull him into a dark embrace. "No! They want to steal you!" she screamed, her heart pounding in her ears like war drums. "Jake, you have to fight. You can't let them take you." A terrible shriek pierced through the enslaved lullabies of the shadows, growing louder, rising to a crescendo that felt as if it would shatter her mind. And then, without warning, the sky darkened further, as if the moon itself were hiding in fear, casting the world into impenetrable blackness. In that moment of despair, Sarah summoned every ounce of love in her heart, every cherished memory of laughter and warmth, and she hurled it towards Jake. "Think of our cozy nights. The stories. Remember how you laughed? Remember us." For a heartbeat, the shadows hesitated, flickering like old film under a broken projector. Their grip on Jake weakened. She seized the chance. "Grab my hand." She stretched out her arm, her fingers trembling with urgency. Jake blinked, clarity replacing the confusion in his eyes for a moment. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could reply, the shadows surged forward, darker and more frenzied, with an unquenchable hunger that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "Jake!" she shouted again, feeling the roots tightening painfully around their ankles. The darkness snarled, shadows merging together, morphing into snarling mouths and gnashing teeth, terrors more horrifying than any nightmare. With sheer force, Sarah yanked Jake, and they stumbled backward, the ground shaking beneath their feet as if the earth itself was in agony. "Run!" she commanded, adrenaline pumping fiercely as she pulled him away, the figures hot on their heels. They headed deeper into the woods, the flashlight slicing through the pitch-black air like a beacon of hope. But hope quickly turned to dread when they caught the shadow of a figure breaking away from the pack, lurching toward them with terrifying speed. "Faster!" Sarah urged, their footsteps pounding against the forest floor, rhythmically matched with the growls that echoed around them. The trees loomed over like silent witnesses, gnarled branches reaching out as if to grab them too. A sudden noise erupted, a snap, a crack, and Sarah looked back just in time to see one of the shadows tumble, entangled in twisted roots. It shrieked, its voice an impossible blend of rage and desperation. "They're falling!" Jake cried, a flicker of hope igniting his eyes. But just as quickly as the flicker appeared, more shadows emerged, their forms restless and relentless. They clawed at the ground to free themselves, screaming with voices that echoed through the trees. "Join us! Join us!" The chorus surrounded them, each call aimed straight for Jake's heart. "Never!" she shouted, digging deep for strength she wasn't sure she had. Suddenly, a blinding light burst through the tree line, illuminating the path ahead, cutting through the darkness. A figure stood there, framed by the radiance, a woman. Her long hair flowed behind her, her gaze piercing yet strange, almost familiar. "Sarah, Jake," she called, beckoning them closer with an outstretched hand. "Mom?" Jake whispered, a tentative hope igniting in his eyes. "No!" Sarah shrieked. "It's a trick. Don't trust her." But doubt clawed at her heart. Who was this woman, really? As they stumbled beyond the trees, the light flickered a moment of clarity, before darkness sprang forth, pushing the light back into hiding. The woman's face twisted into a mask of sorrow. "Come home, my loves, Jake, we have to go. Now." As they bolted toward the figure of light, shadows swirled and shrieked, lost souls trying to pull them back. "You can't escape." They howled, their feet pounded against the earth, driven by raw survival. But as they entered the clearing, flashes of memory collided with reality. Would they find safety or face a fate even worse than the shadows chasing them? Behind, the laughter faded, but the whispers lingered, haunting Sarah's ears. You will return. Would they truly ever escape the darkness once it had tasted their fear? The night still held its secrets close, and Sarah felt a chill as the moonlit sky whispered a terrifying truth: this was only the beginning. A surge of terror flooded through Sarah as they dashed toward the radiant figure. The shadows swirled angrily, writhing like serpents, their voices mingling into a relentless tide of despair. Each scream echoed like a twisted lullaby, tugging at her resolve, threatening to unravel the thin thread of hope that kept her and Jake moving forward. "Mom, please," Jake begged, glancing back at the shadows clawing their way through the undergrowth. He strived for that flicker of hope again, but it was fading fast. "We can trust her." "No. It's not her. Listen to me." Her voice cracked, desperate as she pulled Jake closer. The woman remained still, her face a mask of sorrow, sparkling eyes riddled with secrets that felt familiar but dangerous. As they neared, the light flickered, gaining strength and vanishing in quick succession like the breath of a dying flame. "We can go home," the woman beckoned again, her voice soothing, yet edged with a haunting melody that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. With every step, the shadows shrieked louder, the chorus intensifying. "Join us. Come home." They yelled, each word laced with sickening sweetness, promising safety from the horror that pursued them. The ground trembled, the air thickened with dread as if the world itself recoiled against the deceit. "Don't listen," Sarah cried, urging Jake to stay focused. "Think of our home. Our lives." Sweat dripped down her back, her heart hammering like a drum. The warmth of the light was almost tangible, but the closer they got, the colder the air felt. It froze around her like a vice, clenching tighter with every heartbeat. "Mom!" Jake cried again, and in that instant, she saw it, fear replaced by wild hope in his young eyes, the same hope that had led him into dreams of safety with a figure he barely recognized. "What if she can really help us? Jake, please." Tears burned in her eyes, but she couldn't let the darkness win. Every instinct screamed for her to fight against Jake's longing. The shadows too had won the hearts of many before. They would twist anything, even love, into a weapon. "Help us," Jake pleaded, being pulled by the gravity of the light. Sarah's heart sank as she felt the fabric of their bond stretching, threatening to unravel. Suddenly, a shadow lunged, its shape darting toward them with blinding speed, a malevolent blur, a heart-stopping horror that forced Sarah to look away. "Run!" she shouted, ripping her body into motion as she yanked Jake in the opposite direction. "Mom!" he shouted, panic awakening a fire inside him, burning bright. The shadows licked their heels, fury erupting in shrieks that rocked the very trees around them. They veered away, dodging through the heavy branches, their breath coming in ragged gasps. But the light had begun to pulse again, flickering on and off like a dying star, and the woman's voice, now urgent, haunting, echoed behind them. "Join me, and I will protect you." Reflexively, Sarah squeezed Jake's hand tighter. "Stay with me. We'll be okay. Just keep moving." They burst back into the brush, where darkness reigned and everything felt dismal. Despite their resolve, hope began to mingle with dread. The shadows rushed forward, relentless. She could feel their cold breath against her neck, taunting, promising an end to the struggle with an ease she could hardly fathom. "Let go!" they hissed, 1,000 voices convincing, sweet. "Never!" Sarah bit out the word with every ounce of strength she could muster, plowing forward, the trees slapping their branches against her face, the branches clawing at her clothes like angry spirits. But just as they skirted into a thicket, Jake stumbled, pulled by something unseen, something that reached for him with a cold, insatiable hunger. Sarah twisted around, fear wrapping its claws tighter around her heart. "Jake! No!" Suddenly, the world fragmented, the shadows surged, the light flickered out, and all she heard was Jake's terrified scream swallowed by an awful silence. She stood bewildered, on the knife's edge of hope and horror. At that moment, Sarah knew whatever she had hoped to escape was about to catch her. Would Jake be lost forever? Or would they be dragged into the depths of a darkness they were never meant to know? The night clung to them with a suffocating despair, as the secrets that lay hidden began to unravel, beckoning them to finally understand the truth behind the whispers. The silence pressed down on Sarah like a heavy weight, her heart racing as the echo of Jake's scream faded into the oppressive quiet. Panic surged through her, a tidal wave of desperation threatening to drown her reason. She reached out to where he had vanished, the air growing colder, thick with despair and the bitter scent of something rotting. "Jake!" Her voice splintered in the darkness, swallowed by the insatiable gloom that sought to consume her. The shadows no longer writhed, they now hung still, watching, waiting, like a predator poised to strike. She felt their gaze piercing through her, keen and hungry. As she fumbled through the thicket, branches snagged at her clothes, angry whispers flickering around her. "Join us, join him," they twisted her thoughts, snaring her resolve. She clamped her hands to her ears, drowning their voices with the frantic beat of her heart. But it was futile. Jake was absorbed into the abyss, and something deep inside her twisted painfully, thrumming with guilt and fury. "I will find you," she shouted, conviction igniting a flame in her belly. "I swear." With a shaky breath, she forced herself forward into the deepening dark, each step a battle against the growing sense of hopelessness. The path became narrower, twisted, leading her deeper into the heart of the forest. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, silent yet mocking, and the chill seeped into her bones. She stumbled upon a clearing, the moonlight cutting through the canopy like a knife, illuminating the grotesque outlines of trees, their trunks gnarled and wounded. Here, the whispers became more intelligible, a seductive thread weaving through her thoughts. "Join us, join him, it's easier, come home, shut up," she screamed, fists clenched tight. She took a step back, her breathing rapid and shallow. Their pleas swirled around her, echoing her deepest fears and desires. She was losing herself. The darkness shifted suddenly, and a figure emerged, creeping into the light. It was him, Jake. "Mom!" he cried, a specter of himself, his skin pale as moonlight, eyes wide and fearful. But then he flickered, and the shadows licked at his heels, clawing eagerly for his essence. "Help me." "No. Stay back." She felt a cold wave wash over her, the realization that whatever was happening wasn't real. It had to be an illusion, part of the same darkness that snatched him away moments ago. She had to resist, had to believe in her son. "Mom!" Please, the woman from before materialized beside Jake, her glowing eyes now a piercing blue that seemed to cut through reality. "I can help him, Sarah. Just trust me." The name, spoken softly, seemed to resonate deep within Sarah's mind. Memories of laughter, warmth, and love flooded back, the young woman in the woods with her boy laughing by the river. But in that brightness, she could also sense the shadows writhing behind with malevolence, ready to pounce at her weak moment. Sarah shook her head violently. "You're not real. None of this is real." She turned, heart hammering as she fought against the tug of longing that sought to pull her back toward the light. Yet, in her gut, a treacherous uncertainty began to grow. What if Jake really did need help? The thought wrapped around her insides, squeezing until she felt nauseous. "Join us," the darkness cooed, promising release from the agony of loss and despair. For a split second, she faltered, her vision blurring. What if she truly could bring him home? Suddenly, the ground shook. A wretched scream echoed from Jake, dark claws grasping at him as they pulled him backward into the shadows. "Mom! Help! No!" The primal roar erupted from Sarah, a guttural cry that shook her to her core. She lunged toward the specter as the shadows surged forward, swallowing him whole. In that moment, the world shattered into pieces, cascading into an all-consuming darkness. And just as suddenly, it stopped. Sarah was left kneeling in the clearing, trembling. Shadows slithered along the ground, whispering promises, taunting her with the weight of unanswered questions. Where had Jake gone? What lay beyond those shadows? A laughter floated in the air, one both familiar and profoundly unsettling. Will you dare to find out the truth? With her heart in her throat and dread flooding through her veins, Sarah made her choice, stepping toward the lying darkness. Each step echoed in silence, leading her deeper into the terrifying unknown. Would she uncover the secret to Jake's disappearance? Or would she step into a nightmare of unfathomable terror? The darkness wrapped around Sarah like a living shroud, squeezing the air from her lungs. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself conspired to drag her back. Shadows twisted underfoot, whispering her name, weaving memories of Jake with the promise of relief. She clenched her fists, driving herself forward, harder, deeper into the suffocating void. The laughter echoed again, ringing like bells of doom. It sliced through her thoughts, making her flinch. Find out the truth, the voice taunted, seductive and sinister. It twisted her insides, a dark dance with hope and despair. Would knowing bring peace, or further torment? She hesitated, but only for a moment. She had to know. A cold wind swept through, chilling her to the bone. It carried with it the faintest hint of something sweet yet rotten, a stark reminder that the dark was not only devoid of light but littered with lost souls. She could hear her breath quickening, the panic clawing at her throat. Suddenly, something shifted in the shadows. A movement. She wasn't alone. Sarah's heart raced, and she spun around, scanning the blackened edges of the clearing. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice quaking. No response, only the chilling rustle of leaves and the oppressive silence that followed. The shadows deepened, circles twisting like predators, ready to strike. And then she saw it. Eyes, many eyes, reflecting the moonlight like the surface of a silver lake. They blinked, unblinking, watching her, every one of them filled with an otherworldly hunger. They belonged to figures, barely discernible in the gloom, lurking just beyond her reach. "Join us," they whispered, voices that sounded like echoing stones thrown into an abyss. The words slithered through her mind, curling around her thoughts, warping them. "No!" she screamed, squaring her shoulders. "I want tea." But the shadows beckoned, their forms drawing closer, flitting between dimensions, old as time itself. Flickers of movement formed grotesque shapes, faces twisted with anguish, hands reaching out, wanting, needing. "Mom!" A voice cut through the murmur, weak and faint. Sarah's heart jolted. "Jake? It's a trap!" he called, but there was a desperation to his tone that sent chills shooting through her. "Don't!" The figures lunged, a torrent of darkness pouring toward her. Bright eyes gleamed like shards of ice in the night. She stumbled back, her feet slipping in the damp earth as the shadows closed in, baring jagged teeth and elongated limbs. "Help us," they begged, a chorus of lies masked beneath illusion. "No! Get away!" Sarah clawed at the ground, trying to escape. Her breath came in frantic gasps, the weight of the darkness pressing down harder. They reached for her, brushing against her arms, icy fingers grazing her skin. It felt like death. She felt as if she were drowning, the seductive voices enticing her to join them in their eternal torment. "You don't have to fight anymore," but thoughts of Jake pierced through her fear, lighting a fire in the center of her chest, a flicker of hope she could not extinguish. "You're lying!" she yelled, anger fueling her. "You'll never have me!" With a primal roar, she pushed forward, breaking through the web of shadows. The figures recoiled, their forms shimmering and distorting as if they were made of smoke. "Join us," the voices cried, now tinged with rage. But Sarah had made it to the edge of the dark clearing, the moonlight illuminating a path forward. She didn't stop, she ran, fueled by the image of her son, disappearing deep into the night, but before she could escape, a hand shot out from the darkness. It grabbed her ankle, pulling her down. She landed hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. And then she heard it. A whisper that twisted her very being. You are one of us now. The world blazed with light and shadow, and Sarah screamed, knowing the fight was far from over. The forest roared, and the ground shook as they pulled her deeper into the abyss. What awaited her in that terrifying darkness? A truth she wasn't ready to face? Or the agonizing reality of joining the cursed? The hands tightened, dragging her back, and all she could do was scream. Would anyone save her from the fate that the shadows demanded? The grass felt wet and cold against her skin as Sarah fought against the relentless pull of the shadows. Panic surged through her veins. The darkness was hungry, almost alive, and it was determined to claim her. Desperate, she clawed at the ground, her fingers grasping roots and soil, but the icy fingers held tight, their grip suffocating. "Jake!" she gasped, the sound escaping in a choked whisper. "I'm coming." But the shadows were louder, drowning out everything, cycling through laughter and agonized cries. "You can't save him, you can't save yourself." A surge of strength coursed through her, stemming from a mother's love. Sarah jerked forward, pulling against the darkness suffocating her. With one final push, she wrenched free. She rolled onto her back, gasping for breath, wild-eyed. The clearing was no longer a sanctuary, it felt like a hunting ground, frozen in a moment of pure terror. When she looked up, the figures were gone, vanished back into the dark, but she could still feel their presence, dense and oppressive, lingering. They whispered her name, over and over, a haunting echo that followed her as she scrambled to her feet. Shadows flickered like candle flames, dancing on the edge of her vision. She turned, heart pounding. "Where are you, Jake?" With no response, she felt the cold creep back, wrapping around her heart. They were toying with her. She had to move. The world shifted under her feet, the ground oddly unstable. Every step felt like running on soft sand, a disorientation that made her heart race even faster. Then, a flicker of pale light caught her eye at the far end of the clearing. It flickered like the last dying embers of hope, beckoning her forward. It could be a way out, she thought, fighting to silence the thoughts that screamed for her to turn back. As she approached, she realized it wasn't the sun or moon. The light pulsed, almost breathing. Memories of Jake washed over her, his laughter sweet, bright like the sun chasing away the echoes of darkness. But that laughter was overshadowed by the persistent whispers of the shadows, filling her mind with visions of despair, twisting her memories into painful reminders of loss. Determined, Sarah plunged into the brightness. As she stepped closer, the light enveloped her, soft yet insistent. Images flashed, shadows forming grotesque figures, a mother losing a child, promises of everlasting night, and a face she couldn't recognize, gaunt and shadowed. The laughter returned, louder, taunting her. "You will be one with us." She staggered back, amplified panic splintering through her. Those figures were her nightmares made manifest. "I won." She screamed, feeling the light flash brighter, igniting her courage. "You don't own me." She pushed through, waves of cold casting her back, but she held on to that light, that flicker of hope. In her heart, she knew that love could conquer darkness. With every ounce of strength, she fought through the whispers clouding her mind, refusing to let despair claim her. The ground shook around her, the darkness thrashing in frustration as she began to shine brightly. Sarah stumbled out of the clearing and into the embrace of the trees beyond, where the shadowy figures could not follow. She was free for now, but a lingering dread clawed at her. What was that light? What did I just step into? And then, from behind her, came a voice. A sound so familiar yet twisted. "Mom, where are you?" The sound sent chills down her spine. Jake's voice, but twisted by fear. It echoed through the trees, like a sinister wind, wrapping around her mind. "Jake!" she shouted, but the answer she received was a cacophony of laughter, sinister and mocking. There was no time to waste. She turned, but each step deeper into the trees felt heavier, even as shadows loomed around her once more. "This isn't over," they whispered, and fear sank its claws deeper into her heart. What truth lay in wait within those haunted woods? As Sarah ventured further, she did not know this was only the beginning. The night in the woods felt suffocating, the air thick with fear and despair. Sarah had fled from the beckoning shadows, her heart pounding as she chased after the echo of Jake's voice. The darkness pressed closer, like an ancient beast awakened and eager to reclaim what had slipped from its grasp. "Jake! I'm coming!" she shouted, desperation spilling out with every word. The wind whispered his name back to her, twisting it into something eerie and haunting. Her feet stumbled across roots that curled up like serpents, and branches tore at her clothes while the forest seemed to darken, entangling her further in its wicked embrace. The chill of the shadows clung to her, whispering tantalizing secrets she dared not heed. "Join us, release your fear," they grew louder, echoing her doubts. How could she save Jake when she couldn't even free herself from this cursed place? What if it was already too late for him? Suddenly, a shriek tore through the night, not far from where she stood. "Mom!" It was Jake's voice, raw with terror, and it sent a jolt of adrenaline surging through her body. "Stay alive. Hold on, I'm coming." She sprinted toward the sound, heart desperate to bridge the distance, but the forest began to shift again, shadows writhing as if alive, hungry for the warmth of her humanity. Sarah gritted her teeth and ran faster, propelled by fear and a fierce love that burned bright. Each step felt like a battle against the weight of despair, but it was a chance to see her son again. Then, she burst into a clearing and froze. There he was, Jake, standing in the center like a lost soul caught between two worlds. Around him, shifting figures emerged, half-formed shadows with faces twisted in grotesque glee. Jake's eyes were wide and fear-stricken, struggling against invisible ropes. "Mom!" he shouted, panic drenching his voice. "Jake!" Sarah lunged forward, terror igniting every muscle in her body as she fought through the clamoring darkness that threatened to consume her. They circled him, reaching out with long fingers, beckoning him to join their cursed fray. "Get away from him!" she screamed, feeling renewed strength surging within her. "He's my son. He doesn't belong to you." Her voice cut through the cacophony, unyielding in its determination. A figure lunged at her, but she didn't falter. "Jake, hold on to me. You have to fight." A crackle of energy surged, and for a brief moment, the shadows wavered. Unwavering love and desperation filled her veins, urging her on. "Remember our nights together. Remember who you are," she cried, hoping the memories would anchor him back to her. In a moment of agonizing clarity, Jake turned to her, eyes glistening with tears. "Mom!" His voice was a lifeline, and it pulled him from the grasp of the shadows, fear battling against the allure of darkness. "Help me." "No." She surged forward, hands reaching out. "You are not alone. Take my hand." Through the writhing chaos, their hands collided, warmth igniting where shadows met flesh. She pulled, feeling the strength of maternal love overpowering the chilling whispers. "We're getting out together." But the shadows fought back, scream after scream melding together into a howling wind, clamoring for their return. "You will join us. It's easier here." The figures shrieked, but Sarah remained steadfast, clawing every inch of hope and love, desperate not to let go. With selflessness, she squared her shoulders, pushing against the darkness. "I want to let you have my son." Channeling every ounce of strength, Sarah turned toward the flickering light in the distance, something she could barely remember but knew held the promise of safety. Together, they barreled forward, hands clasped tight as they raced toward the luminescence, shadows clawing behind them. "Faster!" she urged, feeling the darkness breathe down their necks, desperate to reclaim them. The air thickened, but the light pulsed brighter, beckoning them onward. Just as they burst through the clearing, the shadows collapsed behind them with anguished screams. It felt like breaking free from a dark dream, the oppressive weight lifting. They fell into the beam of pure light, and for a moment, the world around them vanished into shimmering clarity. Then silence enveloped them, wrapping them in warmth. Sarah blinked at the scene unfolding around them, her heart racing. They were back at the edge of the woods. It felt surreal, yet so blissfully normal. The moon hung low, casting a silvery glow over the familiar landscape, birds returning to chirp cautiously in the crisp night air. "Mom?" Jake's voice quivered, his eyes darting to the shadows that still lurked at the forest's edge. "Are we free?" For now, she whispered, knowing that the battle against darkness wasn't over. Her heart still hammered in her chest as she squeezed her son's hand. Fear still nipped at the edges of her consciousness. But as long as they had each other, they had a fighting chance. "We'll find a way to end this, Jake, together," she vowed, her voice firm and resolute. A glimmer of hope sparkled amidst the gloom of what lay ahead. But deep down, Sarah knew they'd have to confront the darkness again. Only by facing the shadows together could they ensure their family remained intact. And tonight, they would stand united, defiant against whatever cursed secrets the woods held. "Let us go home," she said softly, and with hearts ignited, hand in hand, they turned away from the haunting dark, ready for whatever came next. This was their beginning, an end to the nightmare woven in darkness, and a testament that love could prevail above all else. Now it's your chance to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about tonight's thrilling conclusion. Your insight matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who are craving a story that keeps them on the edge of their seats. This is the moment to show your support.